Needless to say, these organisms are incredibly delicate because if they were to die off in that particular location, they would be extinct from the entire world. So that's the other reason we like to protect our fish out here. Now, where these fish are from, they grow to about 4 or 5 pounds. Here, they only grow, as I said, a little less than a pound. Originally, they were brought in from the Marquesas Islands. Now you guys are on our later tour of the day, which is actually usually not as good for seeing, as much biodiversity, but really, really good for seeing larger schools of fish. That's because later in the day, certain fish will kind of conglomerate to either feed, or in certain cases, spawn. And if we see any spawning occurring, I'll point it out to you guys, and that's something really special that you don't usually get to see as often. Now the reef that you guys have descended on, this is actually 18,000 years old. See, it's pretty old to us. However, it's actually very geologically new to the islands. The reason we know it's that old is because beneath the coral is a bunch of basalt, lava rock, and that's what coral requires to settle on top of. Anywhere where there's sand, the fine yellow larvae have a really hard time settling there.
This looks like a porcupine.
That's there you go.
Now 75 feet. A lot of it.
You don't think so?
Doing video.
That's neat.
Alright folks, so what I'm going to do here is I might stay a little bit more quiet.
You feel like you're on National Geographic?
I might also point out this beautiful whitefish that's cruising right next to you. Not necessarily a school, but these gray fish with yellow stripes across their body. They have one black dot on their body. Those are known as the vekea'a. It's actually an adult of a type of fish that we see schooling out here in the mornings, which are known as awama. Now the reason I want to introduce these fish is actually because of these particular toxins that grow inside of their brain only when they're adults. Now I point those out because those are actually very culturally important to the Hawaiians. It turns out that neurotoxin is incredibly hallucinogenic, and so in ancient days they would actually bite the heads off of those fish when they were adults.
True.
Similar to ayahuasca for Native Americans. On a side note, tourists would actually come to Hawaii. People who are just visiting sailors would come catch those fish and eat them, and they started calling them the nightmare fish because they didn't understand why they always had nightmares after eating them. Doing that, the little fuzz that you're hearing, guys, that's just our UWT or an underwater telephone. We put it over the PA in case we can hear something out in the distance. Use your ears, use your eyes, look around for any shadows you might be seeing out here. Now what I'm usually listening for are certain cracks, certain squeaks that are indicative of dolphins in the area. So that's what we can kind of listen for out here. There's also a silverfish out in the distance, really good tasty fish called a moo. That moo fish tastes delicious. They say you are what you eat. It eats lobsters, crabs, and urchins. It does so with actually human-looking teeth in its mouth.
They're bigger.
That's cool.
Now I'll probably turn that off when we engage certain thrusters, which can make a little bit of a difference in the sound that we hear. However, I do want to talk to you guys a little bit about the reef and the state of the reef out here. One of the most common questions I get is this reef healthy? It looks so bland. The coral doesn't look like PVC. You don't have to sugarcoat it for me. I know it may look more bland than PVC, but that's actually not because the coral itself is colorless. The only reason it may look bland is not because of the coral, it's actually because of the depth of water we're in. So as you can see, we're in 73 feet, 71 feet of water. Because of our depth, seawater is absorbing certain wavelengths of light, starting with the color red. I'm so glad one of our passengers up here actually brought some red down here with us. However, it looks purple now. I'm pretty sure it was red. If anybody else was wearing red up at the surface, probably purple or black at this point. You guys look around. Is anybody wearing any neon clothing, athletic clothing, maybe some neon fingernails? So this is actually what's happening to our coral right now. We've lost the color red, and if we were to get deeper, we would lose more wavelengths of light. So the last color that was available to us would become blue. And that's actually why the ocean appears blue to us, because that's the last wavelength of light that reflects back. So I'm not encouraging this, but if you guys were to take coral from here up to the surface, it would appear very colorful. Back in the day, back in the 1990s, when people cared a lot less about the environment, we actually used to put very powerful light bulbs on the side of our submarine, amongst other things, to attract more light, or to attract more fish. We actually ended up scaring a lot of fish away, but people were able to see more colors. So in lieu of colors, we are seeing more fish now, and we found that people enjoy seeing fish a lot more. On top of that, lots of companies around here have become a lot more environmentally conscious as the years have gone on. We were talking about endemic fish earlier. Look straight out, you're seeing a very small shoal of milk sea butterfly fish. Those yellow fish with black dots on their tails only exist in Hawaii.
Yeah, down there in the bottom.
That looks like a tire.
Hey, there's a tire there. It's not supposed to be here.
Now we're pulling up to our first shipwreck of the day. This is known as the Predator.
That wasn't real.
That's actually just a coincidence. It was known as the Predator up at the surface, but now it's a place where a bunch of predators like to come and hang out.
Oh, it's part of a
Shipwreck of the day.
If you're looking at that wreckage, that is just the wheelhouse of the shipwreck you're about to see. Lots of people say, wow, that's really small. Now the reason that predators, amongst other types of fish, herbivores as well, like to hang out here is because all of the metal, all of the frame of the ship has provided surface for coral and algae to grow on, amongst other things. So that's what's attracting all of the life around here. In addition to that, it's providing a bunch of structure as well. So it provides area for smaller fish to outmaneuver predators.
Yeah.
Your pilot today, Jason Perkins, is notorious for getting incredibly close to these shipwrecks, giving us excellent views.
Right on.
There's no way to anticipate in the morning who your pilot is going to be, so this is a pretty cool little treat. You guys are just lucky. The ship sank down here not on purpose. Unfortunately, it was sunk down here by accident in 1996. There was a storm that came through here. Some water came down onto the ship. It drained into the hull, and the ship sank. But that by itself should not be a problem. Storms happen, and usually ships don't sink. In this case, the reason that it sank out here is because the owner left this ship out here for months at a time without checking on it. And in that time, batteries drained and bilge pumps, which are just water pumps, were inoperable. So ultimately the ship sank out here, but when it didn't sink in a few seconds. It sank over the course of 4 hours, very, very slowly. And in that time, local mariners called the owner to let him know something was happening with the ship, and he decided to not come out and check on it. In the end, this was written off as a case of negligence because the owner left his ship out here to sink by itself. But when the ship did sink, he was furious because he was convinced somebody must have come out here and sink the ship. Now, he was convinced because of a local, ancient Hawaiian belief known as Amakua. which was the primary reason a lot of people didn't want this particular ship out here. This was intended to be a shark cage diving operation. So you guys see a big crane right over there, right? That's part of the ship. That was installed by the owner who was intending to lower people in a plexiglass cage into chummed water, see a ton of sharks, and then make a ton of money. Unfortunately for him, the operation never started because he was waiting on permits to get started. Ultimately, the ship sank, and he was convinced that somebody must have come out here and drilled holes into the hull during the storm because it would have been a perfect crime. However, insurance divers came out here and investigated the vessel, and in the end, again, it was written off as a case of negligence because they didn't find any signs of sabotage. Lots of folks around here, though, found it as a natural form of justice. A lot of people are really stoked this operation never started. And you'll, to this day, probably not see any shark cage diving operations in all of Hawaii, except for probably Oahu, which has just a little bit more of a diluted sense out there.
Another ship? Same one.
Same one.
Same one? You just turned around?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I thought that
Now I'm looking really, really closely at the types of things that are growing on the hull here. We like to see artificial reef structure in a lot of areas of the world where coral reefs are dying because this structure provides a lot of those surfaces that coral needs to start settling again. And you can actually see little colonies of coral growing. If you look really closely, you might see these balls of these little balls of spikes just floating in the water column. That is the rarest fish in the world, our pilot's favorite fish. It's what he likes to call a free-swimming urchin.
Beautiful. Oh, there's that one floating.
As we pull away from the predator, we've actually picked up a bunch of stowaways. We've actually picked up a bunch of predators that will hang out beneath our submersible, hoping that by hanging out in our shadow, they'll actually be able to get closer to schools of fish that appear here later in the day. So now that we've passed the predator, you guys can kind of keep your eyes peeled, especially when we get closer to denser areas of light. And you might actually see some of those, what we call bluefin trevally, swing out from beneath us. The Hawaiian name for these is omilu. And they're very, very fast fish. They're actually, so there's a good question, are they tuna? They're actually related to tuna, however, we would call them jackfish. So they're not technically tuna.
This is great.
Are you ready to puke?
No.
You don't like water, but I mean, this is great. Water don't bother.
Looking closely, you might be able to see a smaller angelfish with a purple face, yellow back, orange gradient through the middle, swimming down just a few inches off the coral in front of you. That's a flame angelfish. And that fish is endemic to Hawaii as well. Right around the predator is where I like to look really closely at these blackfish as well. There's two types of blackfish you're probably seeing. There's a lot of these lavender tang, which are these kind of watermelon seed shaped fish. And then there's some other fish with fins on the top and bottom of their body. Those are black sturgeon, or humuhumu ele. And there's actually a humuhumu leo kole right over here. That's the triggerfish with transparent fins. Now we know that they're triggers because they have those two, the dorsal and the ventral fin right there. One of our pilots here at Atlantis is actually doing a study on the metabolism of these fish, trying to figure out which of the fish was the most efficient swimmers. And you'd be surprised to learn that these black sturgeon are the most efficient swimmers, even though when you see them swim, they kind of list from side to side. They kind of look kind of drunk. Now I pay attention to the lavender tang, these very, very dark watermelon seed-shaped fish, because these are some of the spawning fish. And if we come here on the correct days, usually in accordance with the moon phase, then we can actually see a little bit of spawning occur.
You like it? It's cool, huh? what? I thought it'd be more colorful, but with light on
If
it.
you look out in front of you, you might see the largest cheese grater in the world. No, that's actually a ladder. Unfortunately, again, that's marine debris. There's actually a story behind that one, though. I'll interrupt myself. There's some fish that are cruising right in front of us. These are the owama. So once these fish grow older, they get a black spot on their side. They become solitary and sexually mature. Those are the fish you probably don't want to eat. Now the story with that ladder is that, there is a bluefin trevally actually cruising right next to us. That's one of the predators that you want to keep your eyes on, because sometimes out of nowhere they will dart straight down. There's a needle-like fish straight out from me as well. That's a cornet fish.
I've seen a eel. He said straight out in front of him.
There was actually what we call a dinner cruise, or some people call them booze cruises out here. There was a DJ who was excited to play his music there. Unfortunately, there was a disagreement between the boat captain and the DJ, and a fight broke out about who was going to pay the DJ. This turned into quite the fight. Got onto social media, and the reason we know that ladder is from that incident is actually because of social media. You can actually see the DJ throwing the ladder out of the boat onto the reef. That was several years ago, over 10 years ago, and since then you can actually see coral growing through the grate. So with a constant enough environment, coral can overcome a ton of different things. It's an incredibly resilient monster of a creature. However, our environment has shifted a ton out here in recent decades, especially because of heat. Certain coral will actually starve itself by getting rid of a very important component of its own body. Now, this is a little bit of a complex concept, and you're actually going to see it come into effect as we get into some deeper water here. You'll see less coral. The reason is because usually when I talk to people about coral, some people don't know that it's alive. It is alive. However, when I ask whether it's a plant or an animal, most people say animal. It turns out coral is a little bit of both. The animal is what is comprised of a whole bunch of little what looks like anemones. These colonize the surface of these structures. And they have little tentacles that come out generally at night, and they eat particulate matter out of a water column. So that's how they're eating. The plant part of coral lives inside of these little anemone-like structures. It's a single-celled algae, so it doesn't grow branches and trunks like other plants. It's not a grass. It's not a tree, but instead a single-celled, very, very small plant that does photosynthesize, and as it does, it actually provides a ton of nutrients to the animal. The vast majority of the animal's nutrients actually comes from the algae. So it's interesting that when coral gets stressed out, it actually kicks the algae out, hoping that a new algae better suited for this environment will show up. However, lots of times that doesn't happen. So instead, coral will starve to death. This process, you guys have probably heard about it before. It's called coral bleaching. And coral, when it does this, it does look bleach white. And that's because the algae has been extruded from the organism, leaving behind a transparent animal and its skeleton, which is made out of limestone. Wow. So there's a ton of things we just passed, including a spiny pufferfish, a ton of these bluefin trevally, some parrotfish, as well as some sleek-horned unicorn fish, which are actually right in front of us again, up in the water park. Although they don't have the traditional protrusion from their foreheads, those are actually species of unicorn fish. There's actually an eel as well. Looks like it might be a viper eel. Look for kind of a white mouth. Not sure if I see one or not. Sticking its head out, kind of like a sock puppet. Generally keeps its mouth open.
Right there.
We're getting a little bit of a really cool distant view of the predator once again. Kind of staying in the same region. This area is really good for seeing a lot of fish. the edge of the basalt, you're going to see the edge of our coral reef as well. This is because as we get deeper, you guys are all experts in light coral now, so this should probably make some sense. A lot of seacorn unicorn fish in front of you. As we get deeper, we lose more and more wavelengths of light, and light gets weaker. That's a easier way to say it. And as light gets weaker, the algae's ability to keep coral alive also gets a lot weaker as well. So ultimately, you're going to see a lot less coral out here, or if the coral does grow, it's going to be in very, very small nodular colonies, providing a lot less structure and a lot less habitat for these fish. So once we get into the sand, that's the reason you're not going to see as many reef fish. And that's the reason why we care so much about coral. Because when coral dies, its skeleton, the limestone or calcium carbonate, breaks down and just becomes very, very simple and very flat. There's a huge kedge anchor out there. That anchor is 5,000 pounds, attached to 2,000 pounds of D-link chain. If you guys left any bags up at the surface, it's probably right above you right now. That's our anchor. Now I'm a scuba diver, so I love coming out here and finding cool new organisms, which are found all the time out here in Hawaii. All you need is a camera and a good eye for it. My favorite location to look is actually out here in these sandier areas, because usually people are more accustomed to coral reefs, so they kind of stick over there. Out here in these very, very simple environments, it may seem bland, but actually there's a ton going on. If you look on the sand, there's these little black cones more than an inch or two high. These are Hawaiian sea sponges. They're endemic here. They're also boring sponges too, so they secrete acid at the bottom of their body that eat into the rocks beneath them and allow them to anchor themselves in these structures. Turns out they're also very special organisms, because they can actually reorganize all the cells in their body. That may not sound incredibly cool, but it turns out if you tear them apart, if you separate all their cells into very small pieces, then you can actually put their cells in the same place again, like in a bowl, and they can reorganize their body into the same shape as before without a nervous system, which is incredible. You're hanging out in one of the other kind of more rare special environments of Hawaii. This is an endemic seagrass. Now, grass is a little bit of a misnomer, because this is actually an algae. It's a calcareous algae, which means that when it dies, it actually breaks down into sand. About 10% of the white sand you guys hang out on our beaches actually comes from the seagrass, all the way down here at 105 feet.
They are 105.
Congratulations, guys. You're part of the 100-foot club.
105 foot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't it feel like it?
Yeah. Right up. Little sandy beach.
We're 105 feet, Mr. Dale. Oh yeah. You see the temperature gauge?
Goatfish,
No, it's right up there.
Kailua-Kona cruising right next to us.
Oh, wow.
And as you can see, they're called goatfish because the two little appendages called barbels that guard their chin. They look like whiskers, and they use those to sift the sand. We're pulling up to our second shipwreck of the day. As you can see, there's kind of this large force field around the shipwreck in which algae doesn't grow. That's because of the fish that live out here on the shipwreck. This is why artificial reef structure is so important. Unfortunately, this shipwreck is down here because of another accident. But in certain parts of the world, they'll sink ships, airplanes, even cars sometimes on purpose, just to create more structure for fish to live on. Now, I love invertebrates, so I have to point out this large green thing. This is a pincushion sea star, that large green thing right on the stern over there. And there's an Alua cruising right next to us as well. That's an apex predator out here. Another type of jackfish, we call the giant trevally, or the Alua. Oh, we have a white tip reef shark on the other side of the keel cruising right next to us, guys.
Oh yeah, there it is.
And that's why the Alua is out here. Those Alua, of which there are several large ones up there in the water column, look distant, far out from us. You'll see they're huge. And the shark is right next to us again. If it comes close to us, guys, please do not roll down the windows. So that white-tip reef shark will sometimes hear us coming and just poke its head out once. And that's all.